welcome to Felicity Yarn Studio. If you're new here, my name is Zoe. It is a pleasure to have you with us today, and of course a welcome back to all of my returning viewers. I am a fiber artist coming to you from the foothills of North Carolina. This is my little space where I like to share what I have been making. That generally includes knitting, spinning. I do have some crochet to update you on today, and I also dye yarn, so if you'd like to find that, that is on Etsy. Also under Felicity Yarn Studio, there is a link in the description box down below as well. I keep wanting to say that I have quite a lot to catch you up on, but actually this time it's not a ton. I do have a few things to share, but I don't have them with me because they have been gifted already. However, I do have a substantial amount of acquisitions to share since we have just returned from our trip to Iceland. So apologies in advance. I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but I am recording this. Slightly recovering from some jet lag here, but I did get a decent night's sleep in my own bed last night. So I just wanted to go ahead and sit down and film this while my mind was fresh on the yarn, and some of the pronunciations on things were still in my brain. So if you've not been here before, then you should go ahead and familiarize yourself with the phrase "my sister Naomi," because as you can tell, she is my sister. She also has a channel called The Yarn Curator. Go check her out once you're done here. But she and I and our parents and my husband Jason just got back from Iceland, as I just stated. I did not get nearly as much like travel knitting done as I thought that I might, but that's okay. I did pick up something for the giveaway that I will talk about in a little bit. But let's go ahead and talk about finished objects. Again, I mentioned that I don't have them here, so I'll go ahead and put some footage up on the screen of what I'm talking about. At the beginning of March, my brother and his wife welcomed their second child, and her name is Tiana. So I have a new niece, and she is absolutely adorable. I went on ahead and cranked out a little baby Mussleburgh hat, which was like the cutest thing ever. I did make that out of one of my own colorways called Glow Bug. That is on my Merino DK base. I wanted something that would knit up pretty quickly. I did make the like smallest baby size available. If you've been living under a rock, Mussleburgh is a pattern by Ysolda Teague. It is customizable by gauge, so you can use like just about any weight of yarn and kind of customize it to your own gauge. I knit the baby size, and it's a wee bit big for her right now. She was really tiny when we stopped by the day that we were flying out. I think come winter it should fit her pretty good, because we're rolling into not quite spring anymore, or the warmer side of spring, I should say, here in the South. Trees are still blooming, things are still blooming, but we're gonna start hitting those like 80, 85 degree days here soon. So anyway, yes, that was a really quick, really easy knit. The other thing that I like last minute decided that I needed to make for her or finish for her like the week before we flew out was I went back to my Battenberg blanket that I actually started for my nephew when we learned that he was coming about 3 years ago. It's been in the works for about 2.5 years. How about that? I had been working diligently on that for a while last year, and I had made a good chunk of progress. But then, of course, I fizzled out like I always do, and it had been back in hibernation. So I decided to go ahead and pull it back out again. I looked at it. It was a decent size at that point. I still hadn't joined like all the squares that I had planned out, but I only needed to make like 8 or 10 more white squares to complete, to make it like finished looking. So on a whim, I decided like 2 days before we left that I was gonna just crank out those white squares, get a project out of my whip pile, gift it to a baby who would actually get some use out of it versus like my nephew who's entering that like pre-toddler stage, and he's not gonna, it would have been, he might have used it. I don't know. He's a little boy. He's into trucks and fire trucks and tractors and things like that. So never fear, I am making Nico something as well to make up for gifting his blanket to his little sister. But I am super thrilled to have that out and off of my plate and into the world. I do really love that pattern. It is a pattern by Sandra Cherry Heart. She also has a podcast, and it is a free crochet pattern. I used sock yarn for mine. I used essentially what equates to a size 1, US size 1 knitting needle, 2.25 millimeter in the crochet hook size. I want to say it's like a size B crochet hook. I could be wrong, don't quote me on that. But it was 2.25 millimeters. The only kind of modification that I made is that I did add an extra round around each of the squares, so it was just like that much bigger for joining them. When I work on that project, I really love it. I think completing that one has actually kind of motivated me to pull out the one that I've started for myself. And I think I just need to just start joining squares and not be quite so controlling about where the colors are going to fall and try to pre-plan them out. I just need to go with it and knock that one out as well. That is it as far as finished objects. I got very little knitting done on this trip. I did very little travel knitting. Like, I think I knit 4 or 6 rounds on a pair of socks on the entire trip. This included multiple days in the car for hours at a time. This included airport layovers. It wasn't convenient for me to pull out my knitting a lot of the time, and that's fine because I was in the moment enjoying our trip. But just so I can show these, I actually did start these right before we left. I don't know what hit me like the week before we left. I just decided to randomly start a pair of socks. These are a pair of socks that I'm making from some minis that were left over from the advent calendar that I got from Artemis yarns 3, maybe 4 years ago. I don't remember exactly, but it was the one that I made my dotted rays shawl from. I'll put a picture up on the screen. It was actually 3 minis, and then the blue is the color that I bound off the bottom of that dotted rays shawl. So that was leftover bits. Here's the other ones. So I always had kind of put these 3 little minis aside, thinking that they made a nice fade and that they would make a nice pair of fade socks together. This was around the time that I was real big into the jelly roll socks, and I think the fade version of the jelly roll socks is called How I Roll by Mara Catherine Briner. Jelly roll socks is a free pattern, and then the How I Roll is a paid for pattern because she includes very detailed instructions on how to get a nice natural fade between your colors. Kind of very loosely followed those fading instructions on these, more so in the beginning, and then kind of when I got up here I just followed my own intuition at that point. If you've ever read through those instructions, you'll kind of understand how she works out a more natural fade. You're kind of doing the rows at random, like 2 rows of color A, 1 row of color B, then maybe 1 color A, then like 3 of B, just to kind of, it tricks your eye into visually seeing the fade more naturally versus a more structured pattern. I have knit in a piece of scrap yarn. It is bright purple, but I can't, okay, there it is. For doing an afterthought heel, I'm just gonna do a regular old afterthought heel on these. One thing that I kind of accidentally discovered while traveling with these, I got really smart and I actually stuck the balls of yarn because I split this last skein into 2 balls mini skein. I just stuck the working yarn inside the sock, which actually made for really neat and tidy knitting whenever I did actually pull them out. I actually worked on them more in the car ride home yesterday than anything else. So I am all the way up to the ribbing here. As far as the heel goes, I think what I am going to do is just continue the fade from this middle part of the sock into the heel. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure that I have plenty of either one of these to get the heel on there. So yeah, these are turning out really nicely. They worked up really quickly. I think because of the way that the fade kind of works, that it was a little bit potato chippy. Like, I just want to fade in the next color. I just want to get that next section done with. So these shall be done sooner rather than later. In my sock bag, this was like the only thing that I brought with me. I have gotten a few more rows done on Jason's socks, but not a ton. This marker is where I was last time. This yarn is from Muststash yarn. It is one of her Star Wars colorways, the Emperor Palpatine colorway, whatever her not Disney infringement name is for this colorway. I can't remember. But yeah, I had thought I might actually get these knocked out before the trip, but that did not happen. That is okay. I am perfectly happy to sit on the couch and knit socks in an evening. I'm a sock knitter. I like having a pair of vanilla socks on the needles at all times personally. I find that they make really good travel knitting. I like to just grab them, and if we run up to the store or wherever, if we're spending 20 minutes or so in the car, I can usually get a few rows knocked out on them. So the only thing that I'm unsure about these is I generally do an afterthought heel on his socks as well. I don't know which yarn I'm going to use for an afterthought heel on these. I don't really have anything that goes with these. I kind of wish that I had saved this bright blue to do the heels on his, but I am the queen of mini skeins. I have a gazillion of them around the house. I'm sure I can come up with something to make this work. So that's it. I have not touched my cardigan since the last time I recorded. I will probably be pulling that out and getting that back into rotation because I think I can knock that out pretty quickly. That leads me to my acquisitions, and I'm probably going to chat a little bit about our trip to Iceland. Before I get really into the nitty-gritty of that though, I just wanted to say, if you are enjoying this video, I hope that you will leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. I am really close to 1,000 subscribers still, and I do plan on doing a giveaway in the next video. As promised, I did pick up some yarn from Iceland for this giveaway. I thought that it was appropriate that I should get some Lopi yarn for the lucky winner. So I picked up these 2 really beautiful blue greens. They kind of reminded me of the glacier. This one especially reminded me of the like glacier hike that we did. And then this green color really looked like the sun hitting the sea when we went out, and we saw a few whales popping through the ocean. So hopefully we will be at 1,000 by the next episode. I will be giving these away, and I'll probably include some extra little things like some stitch markers. I don't know. I like to think I put together a good package. So open up worldwide. Just go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Right, on to acquisitions. So in total, we hit 4 different yarn shops in Iceland. The first 2, we stopped on our way down the south coast on our way to Vik. The first one that we stopped at is called Thingborg, and then a word that I cannot pronounce. So let me see if I can. Thingborg Ulaverslin. Or is it Ulaverslin Thingborg? That's the best that I got for y'all. This shop was really lovely. In addition to having a lot of locally dyed yarns and produced yarns. She also had tons of already knit sweaters and hats for purchase. Jason did purchase a hat from her, and I tore the house up looking for it before I sat down to record, but I can't find it. I know it came home with us. It might be in his truck. He might have taken it to work today. I don't know, but I'll try to remember to put a picture on the screen. He really liked this hat. It was made with some traditional Lofi yarn. Got a little itchy on his forehead the first day, but I think after that he kind of acclimated to it. But yeah, she had a really nice shop. There was so much to choose from. She had a lot of pre-put together kits for shawls and hats and mittens and things like that. So my mom was walking around. She found this pattern and she really liked it. Huna Flowy in Spring. That may or may not be the name of the pattern, or just the like colorway there, meaning I don't know what it means. I'm not gonna lie. Let me stop. It is a beautiful kind of depiction of the sky and waves as we were along the south coast. That was kind of appropriate. But yeah, she saw the pattern and she wanted a kit for it. The yarn shop owner very kindly assisted her in picking out yarns and colorways that would look nicely together. One of the kits that she had for that pattern was this beautiful palette, which I saw and was immediately drawn to. I think I was very heavily influenced by the landscape that we were driving through, because there were a lot of kind of golds and browns and rust colors along the south coast. It is still like the tail end of their winter there. So yeah, not a whole lot of greenery, which is fine. It's a beautiful country in all seasons. But I went through the whole shop, and not that I was necessarily enamored with this pattern, but I really liked this color palette altogether. So they are 50 gram skeins of DK weight yarn. It's all plant dyed by, I think the brand is Doru Band, plant dyed, Thingborg's 2-ply. So they must get this like milled especially for their shop. This one was dyed with lichen. I'll admit I haven't even really pulled these out and looked at them all. This one was lichen up here in the front, the light gold. This darker gold was also dyed with lichen. This kind of green yellow, also dyed with lichen. I'm sensing a theme here. I'm guessing this one is undyed completely. Yeah, these two are just kind of natural sheepy colors. So I don't know if I will actually knit this shawl. I mean, it's nice that I have the pattern. I kind of was thinking keeping them for a colorwork yoke and a sweater. It's minorly prickly, but nothing worse than anything that I've ever knit with before. It does say it is lamb's wool. Again, a 2-ply DK weight. So I don't know. If nothing else, I can always knit the shawl out of it. Again, I was just drawn to this palette. It is really beautiful. You'll notice the theme here. I go for really kind of neutral palettes, and then I also go for really bright kind of neon-y palettes, or something kind of rich. Yeah, there's no real in-between for me. So yes, got this at Thingborg. So we continue down the road about maybe half an hour or so I think it takes to get to the second place that we stopped, which was called Upspunny Mill. Again, apologies if I am butchering the pronunciation of it, but this place was very charming. You kind of have to turn off the main road. You go down a bumpy dirt road. You're passing local houses that are just kind of tiny little houses, farms out in the middle of nowhere. But it's well worth getting off of that main road to go find this mill if you're ever in Iceland. They raise their own sheep and then mill their own yarn right there on site. They call it a mini mill. And they really specialize in showcasing the natural colors of the wool. They do have some dyed colorways in like fingering weight yarn, but I don't know about any of the heavier weight yarns. I did get a sweater's quantity of their bulky base. I got 6 of these, and the base is called Divergaband. I don't know, but it means dwarf. I found that out after the fact when I went on their website and looked it up. But this is 100% Icelandic virgin wool, and these are 100-gram skeins with 100 meters. I bought this with Andrea Mowry's Nurtured pattern in mind. This is a pattern that I have been shopping for a few months now. I tried shopping for it when we were at SAF back in October, but I did not find anything then. Upon return to the States and finally getting a chance to really sit down and pattern browse, looking at the pattern, it is written for an Aran weight yarn, and this, while the yardage saying that it is a bulky weight and their website describing it as bulky, I don't know. I mean, I think I can get away with knitting a smaller size and knitting Nurtured at with this heavier yarn. We shall see. I really need to sit down and swatch with it and see if that's gonna come out looking right if I choose to go that route. I also picked up same base, just in the natural black color wool. It really is just a dark brown, but they call it black for the wool. I picked up her last skein of this, not really knowing what I was going to do with it. It's just there was one left, so I felt like it needed to come home with me. So for a minute, I entertained maybe I would have enough to do like an all-over flea stitch kind of raglan sweater with this, or maybe just a band of color work in a yoke. And I was like, I don't know for sure. And so I started looking at like bulky weight sweaters and kind of the yardage that they would need. And I wasn't feeling great about only having 6 skeins of the natural color. So I got on their website and I ordered 2 more. You guys, this yarn is so well reasonably priced, like crazy good prices. I bought 2 skeins, and with shipping from Iceland to here, granted it's going to take 2 to 4 weeks, I think I paid $40 for the 2 for yarn that is homegrown and milled right there on the spot. I just think you can't beat it. So my first recommendation is, of course, to go and visit them in person, but if you can't get there, go check out their website. They have some really beautiful yarn. I debated long and hard getting some of the fingering weight as well, but I just didn't have a pattern in mind, didn't have a plan, so I couldn't really justify it, especially considering we had a few more stops to make on our journey. I'll try to run through like what a quick look at our itinerary was at the very end, because this is gonna kind of skip forward a few days in our trip. But we did a couple things, spent a couple days on the road, and we got back into Reykjavik for the last 2 days of our trip. Now, there are lots of yarn shops in Reykjavik. There's at least 5 that I can think of off the top of my head. We visited the like hand knitting association store, which is more of kind of like a tourists go to buy the pre-made sweaters. Even though they had yarn there, they had like Ushatita and some John Arbin yarn there, as well as the Lopi, but it wasn't like a dedicated yarn shop, which is what we were looking for. So did some Googling, as one does, and wound up kind of going outside of the like touristy area into the more suburban area, I guess you could call it, where more of the locals were. Honestly, it's called like Lida something. I'm just gonna put the name on the screen because even if I could remember the name, I probably wouldn't pronounce it correctly. But yes, we wanted to stop in there. I know Naomi and I both wanted to check out some local hand dyers and get a couple special skeins. I also knew that I wanted another skein of some Retrosaria sock yarn because the socks that I knit for this trip out of that yarn were like excellent. They were very comfortable for being non-superwash. They wore, like, their durability was really nice. So I definitely knew that I wanted a second skein of that to knit another pair of socks. So again, we got to the store. They had a lot of great options there. I thought it was kind of amusing that they even carried like cotton and linen yarns as well as some hand-dyed stuff. They had lots of Lopi options. That is where I picked up these. Also some locally grown or like Icelandic produced wools. They had the Retrosaria, so I did get myself another skein of the Mondim, and this is color 205. Don't know what that is. They had a sample knit up in a different colorway, but the same like dye method. So it should be kind of all over speckly looking socks. I might cast this on when I finish one of these other pairs of socks, just because again, I really enjoyed knitting with that yarn and I really enjoyed wearing those socks. And while we were in there, I believe the same dyer caught me and Naomi's eye, and this is from Vivid Wool, and let's see, it has a little map of Iceland on her label here, and this colorway is called Mold. This colorway is called Mold, so great colorway name. But it is dyed on the zebra base, so that's why it has that kind of natural black barber pulling happening in spots. When I bought this, I was thinking, I have another souvenir skein that I got from Knit Nook in Morehead City here in North Carolina at the beach, and kind of a light limey sherbety green on the same zebra base. And I'm thinking whenever I take another trip, if I pick up a third skein on this base to do another like shifty shawl or something, one of the shift patterns with all three of these, because they'll kind of have a bit of that color changing effect, barber pulling effect. I think that would make a really special kind of combination of souvenir skeins. So yeah, I don't know why, I was just drawn to this very neutral kind of tonal brown. I've been on a brown kick lately, or just kind of neutral kick lately, which you'll see go off the rails completely here next. The last thing that I actually picked up at this store, I didn't intend to get this, but I had purchased, I don't know, 4 or 5 postcards that I was really worried about transporting back home without them getting bent or messed up. So Jason was like, you need to find a book or a journal or something that you can sandwich them in before putting them in the suitcase on the way home. So rather than just finding some random blank journal at a gift shop, they did actually have this knitting notes book that is made by Lina magazine. So again, didn't really have an intention. I'm not really one for like sitting down and journaling and writing things out, but I do like doing things by hand. So this looks really convenient. It has like a needle conversion chart at the front, centimeters and inches ruler, a list of abbreviations, project notes. There was like a graph paper back here. I thought about with this doing like a Nordic star across the yoke potentially. I'm not a pattern designer, but I would muddle through to get what I have in mind. You can track your like yarn purchases with the dye lots and all of that in the back. I might actually get some use out of it. I'm glad that I spent money on this versus just some random notebook that there's probably even less of a chance that I would use. Journaling is something that I would love to do, but it's not something that I'm like dedicated enough to get into, but this might be more of my speed that I can get into. And my postcards made at home, all in one piece, so now I can frame them and add them to the yarn room collection. So finally, when we parked to go to the little store, again, apologies, don't know the name. When we parked, directly across from us was an iceware shop, which is, from my understanding, just kind of a chain. They sell a lot of the like outerwear, the puffy coats and socks and other things to keep you warm. But they also had a section of the store that had skeins of yarn sitting in the window, and we're like, go figure. So we figured after we were done with the first yarn shop, we would pop over and check out the second one over there. And it was a lovely little happy accident. I did remember after the fact that when I was Googling yarn stores months ago before we left, that this one came up, and I was scrolling the website and I was really confused because I was like, they don't have yarn on their website. They just have like finished goods. Anyway, so we got there. My mom chatted up the lady and she said that they are currently working to get their yarn listed online. And again, it was a really pleasant surprise because they have kind of their own like commercial line of yarns that are produced. They appear, if I remember correctly, because there's a lot that processed through my brain in the last 14 days. It was more milled or processed. It wasn't the like lopey unspun type of yarn. It was more like, I don't know, I don't have a good example. It was very soft. I actually considered getting a sweater's quantity of that as well because it was really affordably priced as well. But then we rounded the corner and we found the table of hand-dyed yarn, of locally hand-dyed yarn, I should say. It is my color, y'all. It is my absolute favorite color, neon peach. There was a like pastel version neon peach. It wasn't really neon. It was just kind of a pastel peach that I contemplated long and hard, which one I wanted. Naomi and Jason both said I needed to get this one. So here we have it. I believe this is pronounced Vatsnes. The N in the middle is silent. I did ask the lady at the counter how you pronounce it, and she said that N is silent. So yes, Vatsnes yarn, and the color is Carol Neon Edition, maybe. Yeah, Carol Neon Edition. And this is just your typical 80-20, 400 yard skein of yarn. I really hope 3 skeins is enough to get me a sweater. It should be. It should be enough to get at least like a t-shirt type of top, or do some kind of color work in a yoke to stretch that yarn a little bit. But yes, this is really beautiful. As soon as I saw it, I was like, yeah, I'm buying that, even though I had just bought yarn at the other shop. The funny thing that happened while we were in there is one of the ladies working in the yarn store like started eyeing us, and she was like, did you make your sweater? She said it in an Icelandic accent that I'm not even going to attempt to recreate, but she was like, oh, real knitters. So we are verified, we are validated by the Icelandic lady in the yarn shop. We are quote unquote real knitters. So we had a nice time chatting with them and purchasing yarn from them as well. So at this point, it was the day before we were leaving. I had to figure out a way to cram 16 skeins into our suitcase and get it all home. But thankfully it all managed to fit. And yeah, like I said, there were lots of other places that we could have gone yarn shopping. The Thingvellir and Upspunny Mill, they had their own little play on the Golden Circle, which is this ring of tourist spots called the Wool Circle or the Woolen Circle. It included a third stop, but it was kind of outside of our route, so we didn't do that. But Yeah, if you're visiting Iceland, it is kind of a knitter's dream come true. It's also really fun to see all of the like Lopi sweaters and hats and things walking around town. Yeah, we really enjoyed our time in the yarn shops, but also doing all of the other fun things. I think that kind of segues me into talking about our itinerary for anybody who's interested. If you're not, I totally understand if you want to tune out at this point. So thank you so much for joining me, and I will be back again soon, hopefully with more actual knitting to share with you guys. But yes, the first day we did fly into the Reykjavik area. We stayed one night there. That night we did go to the Sky Lagoon and did their 7-step ritual, which involved a lot of getting out of hot water and going into cold water, and then there was a body scrub and a sauna and a steam room. But yes, it was a lot of hot cold, which the first time is a bit bracing, but by our like third spa thermal pool experience, we were kind of into it, or at least Jason and I were. It was quite cold when we landed. I think most days it was somewhere in the 20-degree range Fahrenheit, obviously. And it wasn't necessarily the temperature that was cold. It was the like 20-mile-an-hour winds that really just, that's what got us. But if you're layered up, okay, it's really not that bad. So the next day we got up and we left Reykjavik. We drove down, we were headed down the south coast, and the first thing that we did was the lava tunnel, which was really freaking cool. It was this cave tunnel that was formed by a lava flow from a volcano that erupted like 5,000 or 6,000 years ago. Yeah, it was all hollowed out, and you could walk down there, and the rocks were naturally this like bright, vibrant pink and red color from the iron deposits or the metal deposits, depending. Some was copper, some was, maybe it was iron, I don't remember. Anyway, they were beautiful. You get upside down growing icicles in that cave, which were really beautiful as well. They had them kind of illuminated. So yeah, they had just white light shining on everything, so you could see the natural color. None of that is like created by fake light or fake color light. After we did that tour, we continued down the south coast, hit the yarn shops, hit a couple waterfalls. We stopped at a crater of a like 5,000-year-old inactive volcano that now has a lake. It was currently frozen at the bottom of the lake, or of the crater. Got down to Vik. We stopped at, I'm gonna probably butcher this name as well, Rayenfarja, the black sand beach. I do know that the J is a soft sound, but I don't know if I'm actually pronouncing that right. It's the black sand beach with the basalt columns. I'm a little bit of a geology nerd, so I really enjoyed seeing all of these things and the old dried lava flows in the sides of the mountains and the cliffs was really cool. So that night and the next night, we were actually super lucky. We saw the Northern Lights. They came out and they put on a spectacular show. Bucket list item checked off. Not that I wouldn't mind seeing them again at some point, but they were really freaking cool. And between the cave and the lights, and the next day when we did the ice cave glacier hike, just the amount of times that I was like, wow. Like, I was totally that Owen Wilson sound clip. I just couldn't get over what was in front of my eyes. It's just so incredibly beautiful out there. But yeah, it was snowing the day that we went out on our glacier hike. And even though it was snowing and the wind was blowing, they drive you out there. You ride in what they call a super Jeep, which is this like, it's not really a Jeep. It's a like passenger van with jacked up tires that like the rednecks around here would go mudding in. So he's like inflating the air and deflating it as needed. We're driving over just like snow tracks or, you know, random paths in the road. I assume our tour guides knew where they were headed, since they do this every day. But yeah, we get out there, you put on your spikes on your shoes, you put on your helmet, and you're walking in the middle of a glacier. It's unbelievable. Like bright blue layers of ice that have been there for 800 years. That's how long it takes the ice to like compact down. Yeah, it was pretty stunning. And the lights and the glacier might have been my two like tied for top experiences on this trip. I think that, yeah, they were pretty awesome. I'm still in disbelief over here. The following day, we headed up to the Golden Circle area. Don't remember exactly. Oh, that's the day we went to the big waterfall, Gullfoss, then the geyser area, or geyser for all of my UK friends. We got to watch that go off a few times. The one that we went to, I think it goes off every 4 or 5 minutes. So that was pretty cool. I took my picture for Gemma, flashing my primrose for her, because that was the day that I could not go without my coat. We ended that day at another spa, or not a spa, it's a geothermal pool, but this one was kind of a mix between like what the locals actually go to and what a tourist might expect from the geothermal pool / spas. It was called Fontana. It was a little less like luxurious, a little more utilitarian, but again, they had the sauna and a couple different pools at different temperatures. It wasn't our favorite experience, but it was nice to kind of see like more of what the locals go and do. They still had a bar and everything that you could stop at if you wanted. So the following day, we then got up and went to Thingvellir National Park, which is where the continental plates meet for the North American continent and the Eurasian continent. So you can see them dividing. I think I read once before we left that the plates are separating by like an average of maybe like 4 millimeters a year or something. And it's not like they're exactly separating in the same place that amount every year, but it is slowly happening. So that was pretty cool to see. There was a lot of other history in that park that has to do with where their parliament was founded and where a lot of like law disputes and things were settled once upon a time. At one point or another, we stumbled upon another waterfall that was not on our list. We had to do a bit of driving to get to our next stay, which was in this little town called Borgarnes. No, not Borgarnes. Borgarnes, I think is how you say it. I know the Ness is said at the end there. Borgarnes. We stayed at a really cute hotel in this town, and this was kind of our base for hitting the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. We did a little museum in their town and learned some history there. We did some local grocery shopping and found some really good ice cream, which I know sounds crazy being in Iceland, but it hit the spot. That place was pretty nice. And after that, we just headed back down to Reykjavik for the last 2 days, did kind of our own little self-guided foodie tour of sorts. We got the hot dogs. We went and had a traditional meal. I don't know why I air quoted that. Or traditional food at Loki's Cafe. Jason ordered the fermented shark fin, which the locals don't really eat. It is just kind of a touristy thing that tourists do. Somehow I got goaded into trying a piece of this as well, and y'all, don't do it. Just don't do it. Anything that needs a shot of liquor to get the taste out of your mouth, that does not qualify as food in my opinion. So anyway, I'm gonna put a clip of that at the end because yeah, ugh, no, ugh, don't do it. Finally, the very last thing that we did was we hit the Blue Lagoon before we took our flight back home, and that was really, really cool as well. Obviously, you're getting the blue waters, which the blue water is actually made with silica, which is a byproduct of the geothermal heating plant that is right next door to this spa. So it's a little bizarre, but it was really cool. I mean, that place was huge. We wandered around, and we could have spent more time there, but we had a flight to catch. A lot of people will stop there on their way in because they have a lot of like overnight red-eye flights. So I could have seen going there first thing after my flight and feeling like rejuvenated, and like I could have gone all day long. So the heavy debate was Sky Lagoon versus Blue Lagoon. And honestly, I don't know that I could choose between the two because they're similar but different. They each have their pros and cons. And if I was hard pressed, I might say that I like Sky Lagoon just a smidge more, maybe because it's the one we did first. But honestly, I think if you're going and you have the opportunity, you should do both. They're similar but different. I know, I'm riding the fence there, but I have rambled on long enough. If you guys have questions or anything, if you're planning a trip to Iceland, I will give you my, I won't say advice, but I'll let you know what I think. Yeah, that is that. If you've stuck around this long, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like, subscribe, whatever you want to do. I really appreciate all you guys' support. We are going to be at 1,000 on the next video so that I can give away this beautiful Lopi horn. Yeah. Thank you again for joining me, and I will see you guys again soon. Bye. 10 seconds.
Definitely get the ammonia.
The ammonia?
Okay, that helps. It's actually not. It's not terrible.
Not terrible. That's bringing endorsements. You should do a 40.
It's just big.
Oh, that's not never all. Oh, it looks rubbery. You want
It
one?
is a little rubbery.
I can smell it.
There's one left. 2 seconds.
10 seconds.
Get it all around your mouth.
I think you can swallow now. Need a napkin?
Take a shot. Good stuff, huh? Skull.
Yeah, that was like, it wasn't bad until it was bad, and then it was like, yeah, let me get some of that water. All right, I look like hot garbage with a whole 30 minutes of sleep on the plane, and we're trying, let me think, Appelsine. I guess that's how you pronounce it.
Appelsine.
Appelsine.
Waddleson.
It's not super carbonated. Yeah, it is. That's okay. I like it. It's pretty good.
Hints of.
It's like a tangerine. Or, yeah, it's like Crush, but not as sweet. Like sickly sweet. Super soda sweet. It's more like carbonated orange juice. It's pretty good.